Hi, Jonathan York from Bay Financial Partners, looking at the investment markets. Inflation in the US is still a little bit sort of persistent out there. Latest PPI data was again a little bit above expectations, and if the CPI didn't sort of rule out a March rate cut, then this certainly does. But potentially as well, it puts into jeopardy the sort of May or June cut that analysts and economists were looking at. But interestingly, rates have backed off in the US just a little bit. 10 years back to 425 and the 2 years back to 459. So although rates have sort of risen sort of steadily over the last sort of 4 to 5 weeks, really not getting too carried away, and certainly analysts and economists are still looking for the Fed to start cutting rates probably the second half of this year. But that is of course data dependent. Because certainly the US economy is still pretty robust. You've still got a reasonable sort of growth going forward. Labour market is sort of freeing up a little bit, and that's taking some of the inflationary pressures out of the market. Interesting report coming out of the US as well, the Magnificent Seven. Their market capitalization will be enough to make those sort of 7 companies around the sort of second largest stock exchange in the world. Magnificent Seven, their profits there is sort of greater than most sort of countries. Now, obviously, on the political front, the big news there was the fine handed down to ex-President Trump of over $350 million. Now, you add that to his other fines, plus his legal fees, and you're getting close to around $500 million. But all the time, he's topping the polls for the Republican nomination for the presidential race for 2024. But potentially a pretty big week for him, as you've got some rulings coming out of the Supreme Court in terms of whether he can be on the ballot, and also about the presidential immunity. Other big news as well was the Chinese central bank has cut the 5-year loan rate, cut that to 3.95 from 4.20, and that should give households a pretty major boost. But the question is, will it be enough to pump life into that Chinese economy that really has been sort of sagging and sort of in decline for the last year or so? Putin under a bit of renewed pressure as well after the death of one of his staunch sort of critics, died in prison under sort of a little bit sort of strange circumstances. But what's really adding to the criticism is the fact that they haven't released his body. And this just adds sort of further sort of criticism to the Putin regime in terms of just sort of pretty much taking out anyone who sort of speaks out against his policies and his presidency and leadership. Oil continues to sort of nudge up around sort of 79 and change. Now in the UK, on the latest data, the UK did enter a technical recession at the end of last year. And while the Bank of England is currently on hold with its interest rates, a major US bank has come out and forecast there will be 5 cuts this year, and there will be a little bit larger than first anticipated starting in June. Now, in the EU region, Greek farmers have sort of joined the bandwagon with these sort of agricultural disputes out there, and it's just going to be interesting to see how it sort of plays through, especially as we head into the European summer. Now, Australian economy is still pushing along at a pretty reasonable rate. A couple of the big banks have reported earnings in the last sort of week or so, and again, they've been okay, nothing to sort of stand out. Which at present isn't really increasing that much. But probably more importantly in the earnings results from the banks has been their sort of provisions for potential bad debts and bad loans. So that should be good news. Now here in New Zealand, got some of the companies reporting earnings. Been a little bit of a mixed bag so far. Certainly the New Zealand economy is doing okay. It's been, as I say, helped by a pretty decent summer so far, with plenty of tourists here spending dollars. Now it will be interesting to see what the Reserve Bank comes out with later this month. No one's really expecting a change in rates, although one of the major banks did sort of forecast a potential couple of hikes still to come in the first half of this year. But certainly with the housing market still pretty sluggish out there, and inflation really is coming down. It's on a downward path. It'll be pretty hard at present for the Reserve Bank to justify a further rate hike. Because despite the inflation being above their target range, it is on a downward path. So if you are looking for income options, go to the website www.bayfinancialpartners.co.nz for lots of interesting articles, and we look forward to speaking to you soon.